What do you think about this concept of being able to hold on to your Bitcoin? And what do you think it means for a country to accumulate Bitcoin, and how do they hold on to that? How do they get the support needed if government is for the people, by the people, and they can just say sell it or get rid of it? How do we hold on to that, or how do countries, states, and cities hold on to what they have?
It's very difficult. I mean, we saw with Germany, it's Saxony, but they sold. And I remember I was talking to Joanna and her team, and they were sending letters to Saxony saying, don't sell it, but they still sold it. So it's not like it's a cohesive decision. It's some group that has some control. And in the US, like maybe it's the DOJ selling. And we don't know why they're driven to sell, or what motivates them to sell, or who is doing it. But it's not hard. It's not easy. It's actually very hard to hold on to the Bitcoin. I think Bhutan also sold some, or at least they moved it to an exchange. Your numbers there may be different. So the China number, they seem to have the most right now at 190. That's a common number thrown out there, 190,000. But looking at some blockchain analytics, they moved those tokens to an exchange. So it's highly likely they sold. And the US might be in the top now, but the US doesn't have 195,000. I think they probably have maybe 100,000, because the 95,000 belong to Bitfinex and they're being returned. So the whole landscape is shifted from what people think it is. But it's a good shift because it lets the smaller countries have larger holdings, unless the US moves ahead with the strategic reserve. But it's really difficult, I think, for countries to hold it. And there's also a distinction, too, where a lot of the holdings now are from seizures. There's only 2 countries that have actually publicly disclosed active acquisition. That's El Salvador and Bhutan. And I think that's also another challenge, too. But we'll see that change in the coming weeks and months, because if the US does make a move, I think that will trigger a tsunami of capital from other countries to scramble and get into Bitcoin.
You talk about US making a move, and gosh, it feels like a different lifetime ago that the ETFs, the Bitcoin spot ETFs, were approved. It was just January. That was the official kickoff of the institutional cycle. I know we talk about it all the time. I don't think anyone was expecting a nation-state race. But with the US moves, and I opened up to the whole panel, are you guys feeling the pressure? You guys are all leaders. Do you feel now that it's shifted from we don't need to learn about Bitcoin to now there's a pressure to learn about Bitcoin and to get something going on in your city, state, or nation before literally in 10 years we look back and go, well, we missed one of the best 10-year runs in anything ever?
Well, I think the race that we're winning, because El Salvador is winning, we have everything. We have a law. We have the adoption, we have a national wallet, we have, you can go and buy a hamburger, Starbucks, whatever you want in Bitcoin. It's difficult another country to take our steps. But President Bukele is buying Bitcoin every day. So he really believes in having a reserve, a Bitcoin reserve. And for us, the actual president of the United States talks about Bitcoin, his son, and a framework. It's a possibility that they are going also to buy Bitcoin. It's good for us. It's a good, because we're giving a good example, but we need like a state like the United States to do it. And we're really ahead. So I think that you are here in El Salvador is a big step, because it is because of Bitcoin. And I'm really grateful, and thank you for getting to know us. Thank you for going and shop, use your wallet, buy everything in Bitcoin. So our citizens, they see that it's truly important to hold and not to sell, because it was a lot of pressure to President Bukele to get rid of the Bitcoin. And he is also sharing all the profit, for example, in Chivo Pet, which is an animals hospital, and all the profit also to schools. And I think this is a good example for the rest of the world.
That's amazing. So you, if I hear you right, you believe and feel that the citizens support the hold. they support El Salvador holding Bitcoin for the long term?
I think the Bitcoiners are doing a right campaign. So President Bukele is taking these decisions, good decisions to hold. I think that the people that are surrounding President Bukele and talking to him that not sell, and he's a truly Bitcoiner. So he knows what he's doing and he knows he's giving a good example. The Salvadorian citizens, they are a little bit afraid because of the bad campaigning, the media outlet talking that it's like gambling. You know, we had some people in the Congress that they were saying that it was like gambling. So they don't understand how Bitcoin works. That's why it's so important education. We have these cubes where we're teaching to students, and we're also teaching to officials that are going to be working in the government, that they know how Bitcoin works. So education is very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of pressure. I actually thought we had a couple of years. As we all know, there are a lot of people that are vocal about Bitcoin, but there's way more people closeted because it's taboo and they're afraid to have the conversation with their friends because they've been ostracized. Now think about, whether or not, if you're in a political setting, it's a lot more challenging. But this is so important with what happened down in the States with the election and the possibility of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That eats up, 12 years of production? It's just a crazy number before anyone like BlackRock, ARK, Fidelity, the pension funds, the states, other states, Bhutan, the list goes on, who buys it. And so, no, the choice we have in front of us in Vancouver is, if done right and if we accelerate what we're doing, we can set the city up for the next 100 years. If we don't, we have a lot of problems. And so I can't speak for the other councillors, but for me, this is a hill that's worth dying on. We risk the next election, but I'm okay with that, right? Because I don't care about being a politician, and we want to do what's right. And so we're going at it at 100 miles an hour.
Can I just add something?
Of course.
I talked with Ken, I think a month ago or something, but one of the first things he said to me on the call was, I'm not a politician. I'm not like a career politician. So he's really in it to do what's good for the city. He's not in it for reputation. And I think this is a distinction that it hinders Bitcoin adoption. A lot of politicians that we engage with at Jan 3 around the world, they're very worried about reputational damage from pushing for Bitcoin adoption. And I think that scares them into waiting for someone else to make a move. But I think the real risk is not doing something and trying to get some Bitcoin.